We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain and unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government. Hearing those words from the Declaration of Independence is so inspiring for us as Americans here that gives us a sense of pride to all be proud of this country because it's a place where the government is by, of, and for the people, which is the idea that the government serves us, we the people, and not themselves. And if we are not happy with our government, we have the right to vote them out and vote in new people who will do a better job at serving us. This vision is shattered today simply because of the disappointing Supreme Court ruling over partisan gerrymandering, and mostly Congress being so dysfunctional and divided to the point where nothing is getting done, in which we have two big parties that have proven time and time again that they refuse to work together and not do what's necessary on behalf of the American people, and are engaged every single day in revenge politics. These major issues today is fragmenting our founders' idea of making our government an exact portrait of the people. But there's a solution to all of this, and that is implementing mixed member proportional to the U.S. House of Representatives and implementing dual member proportional to the U.S. Senate to achieve proportional representation in Congress. Let's first talk about mixed member proportional, or MMP. Where an MMP, it's a hybrid that combines elements of proportional and single member plurality systems. Under MMP, voters would still have a single MP that will be elected to represent their district, while the others seats are distributed proportionately to the total votes cast in the election. But the only difference with MMP compared to the voting system we use right now to elect our officials, known as first past the post voting, where you only have one vote, under MMP, you have two votes. The first vote will be all about voting and electing a member from your own constituency, and the winner with the most votes will become your local representative. So it's the same thing what we do right now to elect candidates to represent us in our districts. But the difference is that in your second vote, you vote for a political party. And based on the number of votes each party got in the popular vote will be proportionally represented in the House of Representatives. And for any party to get a seat in the House, they have to receive either 5% of the second vote or win a constituency seat. If MMP is implemented in the U.S. House, there would be a combination of both constituent representatives and list representatives, where the list officials are based on the order of their party's list that the party has created before an election. And under MMP, campaigning would be split between national campaigning and local campaign across the nation, since you have candidates running in local House races that still focus on local issues. And while your second vote, also party vote, would be national campaign would be more of a significance under MMP. As well, it would still allow voters to choose a representative at the local level, while also separately voting for a political party at the national level. This would still ensure that voters would have a local representative responsible for serving their constituents' views, while also a political party in the House can also represent from their perspective as well. But with the exception of voters that support fringe parties. Also under the proportional system that MMP will bring to the House, it would allow smaller parties to get seats, which leads to having way more parties in the House rather than having two parties in power. But like what I said before, all parties in the second vote still has to reach the 5% threshold to gain a seat. This was to limit the ability of fringe parties to win seats. But with governing, when we implement MMP to the U.S. House of Representatives, parties would have to form a coalition government with other parties to govern, which would mean politicians would need to work with other officials from different parties to legislate and pass legislation to get things done. We might even see party leaders forge alliances with other parties before an election is held, or wait until after the results are known before agreeing to form a coalition. This would mean voters may not know who will be a representative from list or constituent, even after the votes are counted in which they must wait for a governing coalition to emerge from among the parties. Usually, the governments may change when coalitions break down, which would encourage members can move to opposition or join other parties to form a new governing coalition. As well, MMP is used in Germany, and with this type of voting structure, it resulted in a stable government for more than 60 years in Germany. And if we implement MMP in the US House, it will result in a stable government for more than 60 years as well. But lastly, before I move on to start discussing about dual member proportional, here is what a ballot would look like if we used the MMP voting structure in the US House races. As you see, under this ballot, you see two votes, where on the left side of the ballot, you vote for a candidate to represent you in your district. This would be your first vote. For instance, I live in California's 49th district, and I get one vote to put a single X in any of the circles beside the candidate I support the most. If I place an X in the circle besides Diane Harkey, I support her the most to represent me and the constituents in California's 49th district. And under the first vote, it will stay just like in first past the post voting, with the winner with a plurality of the vote will get elected, and the second vote is to make sure political parties are proportionally represented in the House of Representatives. And that's how MMP works, and what the ballot will look like if the U.S. adopts this voting structure when it comes to electing representatives to represent us in the United States House of Representatives. But with the implementation of MMP in the U.S. House, how do we achieve proportionality in the U.S. Senate? Because each state gets 2 senators, and they don't represent only a district, they represent an entire state. And also, when it comes to like midterm elections and presidential elections, only half of the senators are usually up for re-election. And the solution to this problem is to not use the MMP structure to elect U.S. senators, but use another voting structure called dual member proportional to elect our senators for 6-year terms. In which under dual member proportional, or DMP for short, your ballot and voting will stay the same under the first past the post voting. But the difference this time is that parties will be able to nominate up to 2 candidates per district. But since we're talking about the Senate, it will be per state. This is where parties will be able to specify their first or primary candidate. And their second candidate, or also known as secondary candidate on the ballot, and the voters will still vote for one option, which can be a party's candidate, or independent. In which under DMP, any of the party's primary candidate with the most votes will win the first seat. For example, let's take a look at the 2018 Texas Senate race. Ted Cruz is the primary candidate for the GOP, and he got the most votes, so he would win the first Senate seat in the state of Texas, while the second Senate seat will be determined and won by a party based on its share of the popular vote. But just like in MMP, a party would have to at least get 5% of the province-wide vote to get a seat. And independents are elected if they place first or second on the ballot. An independent that places third or lower is eliminated. If any party candidate is under the 5% threshold, they're eliminated too. The voting results, if DMP is implemented in the U.S. Senate, will be proportional at the state level. And the second seat will be allocated to parties to get a proportional outcome. And this is what a ballot will look like if we use dual member proportional to elect our senators. As you see, a ballot under DMP is very similar to the ballot we use right now under our winner-take-all forms of voting. But the difference you see is parties can run candidates in teams of 2. For instance, take a look at the Democratic Party's candidate on the ballot. You see that Dianne Feinstein is the primary candidate and Kevin De Leon is the secondary candidate. And if Feinstein gets the most votes, she will win the first seat in California. Kevin De Leon can also get a chance to get the second seat if his party did very well in the state. But usually under DMP, it is another primary candidate from a different party who will get the second Senate seat. But to figure out who will get the second seat, you look at the popular vote, which will tell you how many remaining seats should be allocated to each party. The next step is simple. You subtract the seats that a party should receive and subtract it with the seats a party already won to achieve a proportional outcome. And the remaining seats are assigned to the party's best performing candidates. This voting structure is easy to all voters, and people don't have to vote strategically. And that's how DMP works and what the ballot looks like. And just like MMP, it's one way to improving representation and achieving proportionality in the United States Senate. All in all, the implementation of MMP in the U.S. House and DMP in the Senate will finally live up to our founding fathers' vision of making Congress an exact portrait of the people. That will finally and forever kill the gerrymandering. That will end the gridlock and make Congress functional once again. And all voters all across this nation will have a representative and senator that will better share their views and who will always work across the aisle to form a coalition government with other parties to get things done and serve the American people once again. Let's together make our government to serve the people of this great nation once again by implementing mixed member proportional to the U.S. House of Representatives and implementing dual member proportional to the U.S. Senate. That will not just transform this nation into a multi-party system, but will bring back a sense of civility, sanity, trust, honesty, results, dignity, and faith between the government and its people once again. Thank you.